What is going on, everybody? We're back. Different setup this time. The Time My Skates podcast is officially back, and we're here on draft night. It's officially, what is it? June 27th, NHL draft day. I might be wondering where the guy's at. It's me, Alex. I've gotten the honor and the privilege to officially take over the Time My Skates podcast. Johnny, Coots, DG, Z, fucking love those guys. They're still doing great. I can't imagine that they won't be, brought in featured guests at some point. But I wanted to take over. I wanted to bring this to more platforms, to bigger and better heights that we can get to. Obviously, we've never had a camera before. We're going to be posted on YouTube finally now. So we're going to have the YouTube still posted on the Twitter, posted on the Instagram, and now we're also going to be posting on TikTok. I'm going to be making clips of each episode that I make, uploading them to the TikTok to make you guys have the most Time on Skates content that you can. So we're kind of going into a new regime here a little bit, but I'm still going to be trying to give you guys the most funny, just raw Flyers takes that we can get. So it is draft night. I wanted to do an immediate emergency podcast to get this new regime kind of, up and going. And what I personally wanted to do tonight, what I wanted Danny Briere to do tonight, wasn't it? I think it was a little out of left field. And not necessarily left field, but I think it would have been a little bit difficult to pull off. I really wanted Anton Frundell. Frundell to me was the number one center that I think would have gotten this thing going into next year. Obviously, he's a year in the future that we would have had to wait for. But, this team's obviously not looking to compete this year. So we could have used this extra year, adding Zegras, maybe playing him more on the wing rather than right up the center. But even if he did play up the center, now you get a Couturier, Zegras, Frundell as your top three centers. I think that would have been an unreal trio you could have went with right there. But I actually did not see Frundell going 3. I saw him 4, maybe 5, if he even was able to slip that far down to Nashville. But Chicago, they made the pick. I think they made the right pick with Anton Frundell, the Swede. I think he would have been and could have been that Gauthier maybe replacement where a guy who can get you 30, 40 goals down the line. I think that's the kind of guy that Anton Frundell would be. But I cannot lie. I was a Hagens guy. I was a James Hagens guy through and through. I was really high. I wanted this team to get that next center. I like Jet Luchenko. I'm not down on him yet, like some Flyers fans and Flyers Twitter is, but I do think that a guy like Hagens, with the upside that he has, he's going to college, have him work on his game just a little bit more. I think Hagens could have been a tremendous asset given the amount of skill set he has and the potential that he could have. I think he could have been the right pick there. But, of course, Danny Briere. I'm a faithful guy in Danny B. And Danny B, we trust. That's how I go. And Porter Martone is the guy at number 6 from the Brampton Steelheads in the OHL. 18-year-old, 6'3", 210-pound, dominant right winger. You see what the Florida Panthers are doing with Matthew Tkachuk, guys like that. Dallas, they bring in a guy like Mikko Rantanen, which a lot of the NHL scouts have compared him to, which when you watch the game and you watch the clip on him, that's his upside. I was not high on the Martone pick at the moment because I did want that center depth. I really did. But then you look at the right wing position what the Flyers have, Konechny and then Bobby Brink. It's a little suspect. Not saying that Brink's not going to pan out to anything, but you get a guy like Porter Martone now. This is a guy that can bang around, and he could be a problem for NHL defenses to have to deal with on the wings. He had 37 goals, 98 points in 57 games. So getting around to that 2 points a game type player, his physicality and his playmaking ability, I think, are the two strengths that Porter Martone has. And I think this guy could be one of the best picks that in this tenure, obviously Mitchkov being one, but Danny Brea, I think he did knock it out of the park with this pick. I think it was with the amount of center depth and how top heavy the centers were in this year's draft. I do think it was a bit risky, especially with how the draft played out. Right now, when I started recording, the 20th pick went goaltender went at, so I forget his name, but he went to Columbus. But with how the draft went out, I'm looking at my notes here. Guy like Victor Eklund, right winger, went 16 to the Islanders. That could have been a guy possibly you trade up for, but Danny went a different direction. We could have went that route, but he went with the big body, playmaking, strong, in your face, fuck you type hockey player in Porter Martone. And I do think Porter Martone does have the possibility and the projection to where opening night he's going to be a third line right winger, possibly, depending how camp goes, depending how the preseason goes, possibly even a second line right winger. So he's a top end player in this draft. There is no doubt about it. Porter Martone could go down as the steal in this draft, if to be quite frank with you. But I think this draft pick will be graded precisely in about 2-3 years when we see what Hagens turns out to be, to see whether or not we did mess up that pick. And also to see how our second first-round pick turned out. That, of course, being Jack Nesbitt. Jack Nesbitt, if you didn't watch the draft, you might be saying, hold on, whoa, what happened to 22 and 31? I was on the phone with my buddy. We saw the Pittsburgh picks coming up. I said to him, there is no chance in hell that we move up to this picks. Because I was thinking about maybe this was before McQueen went to Anaheim. I wouldn't have minded traded up to get McQueen there if he slid a little bit, because I didn't see Anaheim going McQueen, to be honest. I saw them going maybe defenseman there. I was just playing in my mind. Guy like Roger McQueen slides a little bit, who's sitting there at 11 and 12 or 12, 13, whatever the hell they were, Pittsburgh Penguins. This guy, no injuries. That was the big thing with McQueen. Injury-ridden. It's going to be a big problem for him. He didn't play a lot, so a lot of teams like to back off on him. But, of course, the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to go draft this guy, and now this guy's going to be a problem for the Flyers organization for the next, 10, 15 years. No, he goes to Anaheim. But I wouldn't have minded a little move to be made there. But Flyers do trade to the 12th pick with Pittsburgh. Could not, even the broadcasters were saying, I think it was the first time that the Flyers have ever made a first-round pick that was originally owned by the Pittsburgh Penguins. But we do give up our 22nd pick and our 31st first-round pick, which it does seem like a lot to give up like a guy for a guy like Nesbitt. A lot of draft had Nesbitt going around that range, so there's a chance that the Flyers could have just stayed put and Nesbitt would have slid. But with how, like I said earlier, with how the draft kind of played out, I think Hagens could have been a play at 6 and then maybe trade up to get a guy like Victor Eklund where he went 16, could have made something like that work out. But either way, from the Windsor Spitfires in the OHL, Jack Nesbitt is now a Philadelphia Flyer. We got our center that Flyers fans have been crying for. As I'll put hand up, I was been one of those Flyers fans in the first round. 6'5", 185. I think the 6'5" part is the clear thing that jumps out to you when you look at a guy like Nesbitt. The 185 is a bit scary. I can't lie. He's kind of built like a twig. But from the film that I watched on him, this guy likes to throw his body around like nothing I've ever seen from guys in the OHL. He along the boards fighting for puck battles. He's just throwing his body all around, which I think when you look at what was the main theme in this Flyers first round of what the Flyers did, I think it's the physicality and the size that they added to their team. Flyers have been known for recently, not like, broad scheme of things, same type of fourth line player, small, not that fast. This draft, 6'3" Martone, 210 pounds. That's the part I really love about Martone. 6'5" with Nesbitt here. They added height and they added just beefiness and just fuck you type hockey, which is what I think is what this league is trending towards. It's going back in that cycle. It's kind of going for the, finesse plays, which we did add, of course, with the Trevor Zegras trade and a guy like Matvei Michkov, which I'm never going to complain about two guys like that. But Flyers add a lot of height and built to this team, which I think was needed. Now, I do think possibly the downside to Nesbitt, he does kind of have that make of another fourth line kind of guy, fourth line center, third line center, which we've had so many of those. But who knows? I do think he does need a lot of work on his skating and his shot, and like his all around, he does need some work. But you can't teach size, which he does have. He did have an Adam Lowry comp, which I thought was quite interesting. But I think that's if we get an Adam Lowry type player, captain for the Winnipeg Jets, that's a fucking home run. If you get a guy like that at 12, I could see this as being one of those picks so where it could be a swing and a miss. This one, I think, could go. I'm really not sure. Instant reaction to this draft pick, I'm not high on it just because of who was kind of there. But a big fear I do have, bringing up Victor Eklund again, is could we be facing another Cole Eiserman situation from last year where, we took Jet Luchenko with center, where a winger, top goal scorer, goes to the New York Islanders just a bit later, which is exactly what happened. Eiserman left wing, and Eklund on the right wing this time. But I do fear that could be a possible situation that we run into where a year or 2 years down the line we say, damn, those two guys were sitting right there for us. But a guy who I was really looking at was Budiemi. I think, excuse me if I mispronounced that name, defenseman out of Boston College. He was the captain for that Boston College team. I'm a Penn State alum, so watching that Frozen Four and watching, let me just actually, Boumedienne. We're just going to go with that. Watching him roughhouse that Penn State team, I would have loved that to beef up our defense. As of right now, I do not think he has gone yet. I started recording from the 20th pick, like I mentioned, so I have not really checked in. I figure the Flyers are done, in the first round, and I can't really see them moving back in, even though we do have a lot of second rounds. But I think Danny's going to stay there, maybe make some day 2 moves. But I would have liked to seen maybe stay there, or if we trade up just a little bit, a pick or two to take Boumedienne, or a guy like Jackson Smith. He went 14 to Columbus, which is right after the Flyers pick at 12. There were a few defensemen, Smith, Boumedienne, who I would have. Aitchison even went after the Flyers drafted, who I thought was going to go towards the early teens, maybe even like that 10, 11 area. But the Flyers needed center depth. They got their guy, who Danny Briere said in that weird little bubble interview thing, the draft house, whatever the hell they got going on now. You were our guy from all along. We're so happy you're here. And hey, as I said, I'm a Danny believer. I have faith in Danny Briere and Keith Jones and what they got going on here in this new era of Orange that they're trying to incorporate into the Flyers organization. And I'm waiting to see what we got. Now that it's 10:18 p.m., first round is wrapping up. I give the Flyers a B+ right now for how this draft went. I think they hit it out of the park with the Martone pick. I think he could have went. Martone really could have went anywhere from 3, depending if the Blackhawks really did like him. They ended up obviously going with Frendell, which I think is a phenomenal pick. Anywhere from 3 to like 8. 8 would have been pushing it a little bit much, but hey, Hagens went a little bit later than we thought he was going to go. But I think we got a really big steal at 6 with Porter Martone. And, I think at 12, we're just going to have to wait and see. I think Nesbitt's just going to be one of these foundational pieces to where he's going to have to work his ass off. But in camp, hopefully he gets down to the AHL after he's done in the O, and he just works on those fundamentals. Because I think if he grounds at his game, works out the fundamentals, and grows into his body, again, he's only 18 years old. So he's still a kid right now. He's 185 pounds. You best believe, Jonesy even said it best, you look like a flyer. Well, if he looks like a flyer, beef him up a little bit. He's got the size. He likes throwing the body around. He just can't get bitched around trying to throw the body around and getting reverse checked in the NHL, which I could see happening if he doesn't put the weight on. But Flyers draft night, we're here. All the speculation of what's going to happen, how's that 3 to 10 range going to work out, has been answered. And now, day 2. I'm really interested to see how day 2 goes. I would like to see Ravensburgen, the goaltender. I would love to see him get brought in, one of the top goaltending prospects in this draft. I would like the Flyers to bring him in and, add to that goalie factory that we so-called have, even though we got nothing, even though Zivdragan is supposedly the next sure thing. But I've heard a lot of sure things in Flyers goaltending history in the past few years, so just keep adding to it. But so that's going to wrap things up for round 1 immediate reactions. So this is our new era of orange for the Time I Skate side of things. We're going to be going to YouTube, going to TikTok for the first time, and of course that X platform and the Instagram is going to keep going. Let's get this thing going, guys. I'm sorry that we, took a little bit of a hiatus towards the end of last season. It just started to get kind of brutal watching this team, and it really didn't get fun for us anymore. So the guys decided to step away. They're, going at different points in their life. I'm fresh out of college. I want to take this bull by the horns, and I'm looking to bring this podcast to new heights. So thank you, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on the post notifications, and let's get some new era of orange in here. Come on, Flyers hockey. I'm ready to go for this season. Hope to see you guys. Hope to keep watching these videos. Thank you, guys. See ya.